Welcome to day 17 of the 28-day body transformation audio seminar, and today we are talking about intensity. Let's begin today's lesson with a little bit of a thought experiment. Let's suppose that you're an exercise scientist and it's your job to try and determine the primary factor that's most directly responsible about resistance training that causes stronger, bigger muscles. You correctly deduce that every single individual that goes in the gym and performs resistance training must do some degree of volume with some degree of intensity. Everybody that performs any training at all has to do at least one repetition, which means they also have to do at least one set, and they have to do it with at least some degree of intensity. For today's purposes, let's define volume as total number of sets and reps, although that's traditionally how we tend to think of volume, and I will define it in the future with a different definition that I feel is more accurate. For today's purposes, let's just consider volume as total sets and reps. And intensity, let's define as a measure of effort at any moment in time. So everybody does some degree of volume with some degree of intensity. Let's think about a couple people that we normally see at the gym. The average gym goer that you see, let's just say, you always see the guys that maybe perform 3 to 5 total sets. Let's just say bicep curls with very low intensity, and they never really get any degrees of results. These are the guys that go to the gym and they're always curling the 25, maybe 30-pound dumbbells. They perform with a fairly low intensity. They do maybe 8 to 10 repetitions. It looks like it maybe kind of sort of starts to get difficult, and then they set the weight down. And then there's also another group of people that, might yell, might scream, might sweat, might shake, and they're performing with a very large degree of intensity. And while I would say it's not always true, these are the people that you generally see using heavier weights than the average gym goer. Let's think of another metaphor. The sprinter versus the marathon runner, and we've all heard this one before. I just really want to reiterate, because we all know this is sort of true, but I don't think we make the proper application. Sprinters, the physiological nature of their exercise is very, very brief, but maximally intense. They're running as fast as they possibly can for 100 meters, 200 meters, and I believe that the longest sprint in the Olympics, I think, is the 1600 meter dash versus a marathon runner. Marathon runners do move at a pretty good pace, but the nature of the exercise is that it's significantly longer. It takes, a little over 2 hours for some of the best marathon times. But at any given point in time, the intensity, the measure of effort at any moment in time for a marathon runner is less than that of a sprinter. But consider the two physiques. Sprinters have very big muscular legs. Their upper bodies tend to be fairly muscular. They have low levels of body fat, and they look very, very athletic. The marathon runner, however, for example, tends to look a little bit more stringy. They do not have a lot of fat on them, but they don't have a large degree of discernible muscle mass that's very evenly separated. We all know past a certain point, too much volume is literally detrimental. However, we tend to train some groups with very high volume and very high frequency, for example, calves and abs. The reason I think that we tend to train some of these muscle groups a little bit more frequently is we're often told that because they're either more fast twitch or slow twitch muscle, that they can be trained more frequently, but calves especially are very, very hard for a lot of people to get to grow. Well, if our calves have evolved to sustain a large degree of repeated effort because we've walked for thousands and thousands of years, you're not going to get them to grow by doing high volume, right? I mean, high volume is what causes them in the first place to be very, very resistant to growth. Every single muscle group is governed by the same physiological principles. You need to make every single set maximally intense. And consider that sprinter versus marathon runner. The sprinter has more muscle mass, tends to have lower body fat levels. The marathon runner tends to look very stringy, very sinewy. To elicit the growth response, your body must view a workout as a threat to its survival. And the larger degree of intensity that you're able to generate during your workout, the greater the overcompensation. Volume absolutely cannot be the primary factor that is most directly responsible for size and strength increases. If it was, if more sets were better, in every instance, not only would the people that perform the most volume have the best results, but you would have a built-in guarantee. Marathon runners would have very highly developed legs, while their legs are a lot less developed than that of a sprinter. Past a certain point, performing too much volume creates a stress on the body that the body is unable to fully recover from. In fact, training too much with too much volume is literally detrimental. If you train such that you can't recover from it, your muscles will actually become smaller and weaker. To elicit the growth response, your body, I'm going to repeat this again, must view your workout as a threat to its survival. So more is not better. It's a common belief perpetuated by the Weider camp, by the Schwarzeneggerian type bodybuilding philosophy that if 5 sets is good, 10 sets must be better. And if 10 sets is good, 20 sets must be better. More is not better when it comes to building muscle. More intensity is better, yes, but not more volume. And I can't make that distinction clear enough. And again, we all know that this is true. If more is better, you would have a built-in guarantee. If 5 sets wasn't working, you could always do 6 sets. If 6 sets wasn't working, you could do 10, and so on and so forth until everybody got the results that we desired. But we all know that doesn't work on some level, so why do we foolishly continue to try and perform more and more and more volume? More intensity needs to be the answer. And intensity being a measure of effort at any moment in time. I know that we all sort of think that our workouts are intense. We all think that we perform with a much greater degree of intensity than the average gym goer. But I can tell you that the overwhelming majority of people that go to the gym, even people that will listen to this, are far, far, far short on intensity. Let me explain. You have 3 levels of strength in your muscles. You have the concentric, which is the lifting. You have the isometric, which is the holding. And you have the eccentric, which is the lowering of the weight. And of the 3, the eccentric, the lowering, is actually when you're strongest. Think about it this way. You can hold a heavier weight than you can lift, and you can lower a heavier weight than you can hold. But most people never even go to concentric failure in the first place. Consider how the average person performs a set of bicep curls. They grab the 20 or 35 pound dumbbells and they curl at a normal pace, kind of lifting up explosively, lowering until it becomes difficult, until at some point in their mind they feel that they are unable to perform one more repetition and they set the weight down. They have not even achieved 1/3 of total muscular failure at that point, because they have 3 levels of strength and because they haven't even fully fatigued one of those levels of strength. To maximally stimulate muscle growth, your sets must be maximally intense. Well, how do you do that? Let's go back to curls. You perform it to the point where you are no longer able to lift the weight despite your greatest efforts. If there was half a dozen naked women standing right there cheering you on, could you move that weight 1 more inch? If I had a gun to your head, if I had a briefcase with $1 million in it, I told you that you would have that briefcase if you perform 1 more rep. Could you get 1 more rep done? And deep down, we all know that we would find a way, right? And if those half a dozen naked pretty girls were there, we'd probably get 2 or 3 more reps. But the idea is, once you have reached that point where despite your greatest mental, emotional, and physical effort, you are no longer able to lift that weight, you need to keep going beyond that point. Because at that point, when you can no longer move the weight, you have only reached concentric muscle failure. At this point, you need to continue to try and lift the weight, using as much effort, as much concentration as possible, even though the weight is not moving. This is your isometric strength, and you are stronger in the isometric. This section of the repetition might last anywhere from like 1 to 2 seconds to maybe as long as 10 or so seconds, depending on how much you're really focusing and depending on the nature of the exercise and lever arms and stuff like that. At some point, despite your greatest efforts to just keep the weight in place, even though you're trying as hard as you can to lift it and it's not moving, at some point the weight will start moving in the opposite direction. Now at this point, with the weight slowly being lowered, you are still giving every single ounce of energy and effort and concentration that you have to try and lift that weight, even though that weight is slowly being lowered to the ground. And you fight this the entire way until the muscle reaches the fully extended position and the weight is lowered fully. Only when you have reached that point have you performed one proper set with maximum intensity. We all remember doing those in high school, right? If you performed any kind of high school weight training, you probably remember a coach. You probably had a buddy that would help you with a set of exercises like that, where he would squeeze every last effort and strength out of that set as humanly possible. That was one maximally intense set. And if your job when you go to the gym is you want bigger, stronger muscles, you need to make those workouts as intense as possible. So you have 3 levels of strength. You have the lifting, you have the holding, and you have the lowering. It's your job to try and reach momentary muscular failure in all 3 levels. And if you do that, your workouts will yield much greater size and strength increases than whatever you're doing is now. Most guys I see in the gym never curl more than 35 pounds. They never shoulder press more than, let's just say, 50-pound dumbbells. And they never chest press, dumbbells that are heavier than maybe 65, 70. And the reason is their workouts are not sufficiently intense, and they believe that they can make up for this in terms of additional volume. Now, we will talk about volume tomorrow and exactly how much volume you need for your workouts. But to preface that talk tomorrow, the question when you go to the gym should not be how much work can you perform, but what's the least amount of exercise that you need to do to maximally stimulate muscular growth. That's your purpose when you go to the gym. You go to the gym only doing the precise amount necessary and with the goal of generating maximum intensity. Now, what kind of results can you expect? And what kind of results do I generally get with my clients? Most clients double their strength in almost every single lift when I train them personally, and I take every single set to that point of momentary muscular failure through all 3 levels, the concentric, the isometric, and the eccentric. Most clients double their starting numbers in terms of weight and repetitions within 3 months. And most clients will get close to about tripling every single lift, usually around the 6-month mark. These are the standard numbers that I've been getting from people. So if you've been curling 25-pound dumbbells and you've been stuck at that number for a while, and Lord knows we've all seen the guys at the gym that are only ever curl 25s basically all year. 3 months, most clients I have get that up to almost a 50-pound dumbbell, and usually have that up to about 65, 70, sometimes 75 or a little bit more pound dumbbell curls by the 6-month mark in terms of men. For women, the same strength gains tend to hold true on most lifts, but obviously they handle less weight. Most people do not get the results from their workouts that they think they can have, but most people do not get the results because their workouts are not nearly intense enough. Really think of that metaphor, the sprinter versus the marathon runner. One type of exercise is very, very, very intense, and you can see what it does to that physique. And the other one is still, it's a very challenging workout, running a marathon. But again, because intensity is a measure of effort out of a maximum effort at any given moment in time, running a marathon is not nearly as intense at any given moment as sprinting. Your job when you go to the gym should be to maximize intensity, go home, rest, recover, give your body enough basic nutrition that it needs to recover from those workouts, and then make your next workout maximally intense. If you can do that, your size and strength increases will be so much bigger than you guys think is even possible, and I can guarantee that to you if you just follow this really basic formula. More is not better. Better is better. Your assignments, something I highly recommend you doing, film a set, any set. Take an exercise that you feel that you're good at, film a set of you performing it, and judge your intensity. If you want to, share it with the group. If you want to send it to me at fitcoachjerome@gmail.com. I will let you know what I think about it. Film a set, gauge your intensity, ask yourself honestly, could you have gotten more effort out of that set? if you were training that person, how would you view that set? Check your intensity. And then the next time you work out, more intensity. Push that line even further. Thanks for watching, guys. Or excuse me, thanks for listening, and I will talk to you tomorrow.